Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. And we're zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on a great viewer comment that was a result of a discussion we had here on the Peace and Harmony channel that was to understand the dynamic of the covert narcissist and how really abuse can result as a result of neglect. The sort of hands-off father, the hands-off husband, the hands-off boss, someone who is just really not present, not there, not giving input. They shy away from anything contentious. Perhaps they just really want to be liked. They always want to be in, favorable light. They don't ever want to ruffle the apple cart. They are fearful, insecure, or afraid of that. So oftentimes they tend to be very awkward in situations which require advocacy, assertiveness, speaking up, interaction, having communication, having dialogue, being able to clear the airways, have eye contact, have affection, have these sort of normal aspects of a healthy relationship, but yet they tend to withdraw. They tend to be dismissive. They tend to minimize. They tend to not resonate. They tend to not relate, not really sort of support. The covert narcissist, as we know, kind of with a lot of people with narcissistic traits or narcissistic disorder, they tend to be plagued by a sense of pathological self-importance. Pathological meaning not normal, abnormal, having a pathology or a disease, indicative of disease, which is the opposite of ease. Pathology meaning not normal, i.e. if we were to look at the bulk of the population, the mass, so to speak, these individuals would be sort of on the lower end of the bell curve. So, when you study statistics, you talk about the bell curve. It's shaped like a bell. And you've got the median in the middle, which is indicative with the mass. And then going along further, you've got the upper percent, you've got the lower percentages. And so really, the narcissist, the covert narcissist, is really plagued by this pathological sense of self-importance. And by doing so, though, rather than it being overt, rather than being the guy or girl who springs into a party with all the loudest, flashiest of clothes, their banter, it's always about them. They're giving you the kind of look, the once over, and then, walk by, and then sort of overtly, treating you like you're a nobody, a nothing, a doormat. And yet, then you'll quote unquote, feel a rise of dopamine and serotonin if this person then says hi to you, because they are so narcissistic, that only specific people get to be in their inner circle. So there's this whole discussion, as well as, discussion underneath the dynamics, the subtleties. But it's also to understand that it is the withdrawing of affection, the withholding of communication, the withholding or withdrawing of normal things like affection, eye contact, which can be abusive. So it's really very, like we discussed here on the channel, and we do, a lot on, a lot of different topics, particularly that of the covert narcissist, is the very passive, the very absent, the very one who kind of shies away from conflict or confrontation. What you might think of as like the introvert, yet they're selectively introverted, meaning there's only specific situations where, they're really not very proactive, assertive. They can, be very good at work. They can be very good at certain, specific areas. So that they have the ability. But then when it comes to their loved ones, when it comes to their spouse, or when it comes to their siblings or their fiance, you get through the love bombing phase, and then there's this withholding. And so it's very important to understand, that then the reaction that oftentimes ensues from the healthy individual, which is to work harder at the relationship, to try more things, to salvage things, to save things. I'm going to try, I'm going to try, I'm going to try. So we see this word repeated again and again, which perpetuates the struggle of your own low self-esteem. So in other words, it is when you always try something, there's always a tinge of lack of self-esteem or lack of self-worth. I'm trying. In other words, I'm, doing the best that I can, but I'm not getting anywhere. So people can try for weeks, months, years, and decades. I'm trying to make this work. I'm trying to make this relationship work. I'm trying to make this business work. I'm trying to make these pants fit. I'm trying. You can try all day long, but oftentimes what ends up happening is people then stay in this limbo or this middle zone of non-growth, of non-happening, of, non-happiness. And it is to understand that the effect then is I'm going to try to work harder. I'm going to try to change this person. I'm so good, that I have enough love for the both of us. And then over-obligating, over-committing, over-focusing on this individual while you go neglected. Your needs go unmet. You enter into the martyrdom syndrome, the codependency, the egoist situations where, you're not being represented. You're not, having anything done favorably for you. You're not on the receiving end. You're always on the giving end. This is where we see codependency take off. Egoism, taking off. Dr. Craig Malkin, you only become an echo of this person's needs. Your needs are superfluous, irrelevant, unimportant, silly, superfluous, extra. Anytime you want some, it's always about giving that person the best piece of the meat, the best cup of coffee, the best birth, whatever. It's always about giving them the best gifts. And if you don't receive anything, oh, it's okay. I love to give more than receive. This is the hallmark of the codependency, the egoist. And really, when you're then trying, to fill up that space, fill up that gap, that percentage where it's, 80% about them, 10% about you, and then the 10% the rest of the world, it's when you then try. And trying means, there's really sort of a lack of self-belief, lack of faith in oneself, or lack of trust that things are ever going to turn. So you become used to, conditioned, and programmed to be always what I call having the short end of the stick, the short end of the conversation, the short end of the gift list. It's, the short end of the pie, the short end of the cake, the short end of the meat. You're always getting seconds. You're always in the back seat, second fiddle, 18th fiddle, whatever it is. It's never about you. And then that becomes okay because it becomes, super, you then gain your value. You're in this superior state through neglect, through self-starvation, emotional deprivation, physical deprivation. Oh, I don't need anyone to do that, for me. I don't need anyone to do this. I'm so selfless, and then people get into this sort of selfless rant, like it's better to be selfless. So then there's this sort of, hidden agenda of like, well, who can be the bigger martyr than me? Who can give more? Who can eat less? Who can drink less? Who can be less? And so then it becomes this competition of the less. This is martyrdom in its living glory. It's, how can I be meek enough and small enough so I can make more room for others? Some of this is good, but really in the extreme, when you're in a relationship with a covert narcissist, it can be very hazardous and dangerous because you're always waiting then for things to turn around for you. It's like the buy and hold strategy with the stock market. Well, if I just hold on to this stock, even though it's plummeted, eventually it'll come up. And then, 5 years later, you're like, well, yeah, eventually it's all going to come back to me. And then 10 years later, well, yeah, then it'll definitely come back to me. And then it's like you're in this temporary mindset, which you think is temporary, when it's actually permanent. So that is the problem when you get too in depth with these relationship types and you're always on the not receiving end. You're always in the try mode. Tomorrow, really yesterday. And the trying is always plagued by, well, if this happens, it's the what ifs, well, if this works out, if I try hard enough, and then you're still then perpetuating the wheel of denial. In other words, there may be something wrong with this person. There may be something wrong with this marriage. There may be something wrong with this job. There may be something wrong with this fiance. But rather than having enough faith and trust in yourself to call it what it is, you're perpetuating the lie. This is also called enabling. And you're enabling this broken relationship to continue. Codependents are enablers. It's like, again, the enabler to the alcoholic. Well, I didn't really hear the bottles clinking in the garbage that they're throwing out of their trunk. I didn't really see that vodka bottle, sticking out of the diaper bag that we haven't used for years. I didn't really see that flask enter the briefcase. I don't really know where this person is going into the garage for so long, or the attic, or the study, or the basement, or the neighbors, or their drive. It's just, they always sort of disappear about this time. They're always sort of in the basement, even though it's a party. They're in the attic, even though, we just have guests over. They're still getting ready. All these excuses, and then the narcissist will also give you they'll give you the excuses, and then you continue to eat the bull crap. So it is, it's important for you to then recognize what you need and deserve, and to get agreement within yourself as to this, and know what you have been deprived of for too long, to the point where I call it, what you're through is like emotional asphyxiation. You can't breathe, you can't love, you can't receive emotionally. All of a sudden, years are, swiped out of your life, and you didn't receive, what you had planned on didn't happen. You're staying in that, that mediocre zone for too long, and then you're really entering into the resentment or the anger or the, the stuffed down feelings, which either result in a deprived bank account, a fat gut, an unhappy situation, you're a disease inside, you're getting these chronic fatigue, these immune disorders, because epigenetics, basically your mindset and your milieu, your emotional environment affects your DNA, and then the expression of certain chromosomes, which then lead to health or disease. Dis-ease, the opposite of ease. So if your life is very painful, a struggle, emotional, unhappy, you're suffering, but the narcissists don't want to hear it, they don't want to process it, that's just how they are. That's just how it is. They're shrieking away. It's time for you to say, well, maybe not. And then be able to resignate from that emotional deprived state into the receive state, to the acknowledgement state, to the validation state. And then begin to get agreement, with this individual and within yourself. Well, that's not really fair, is it? Well, maybe you're right. Begin to then confront these people or situations, because this didn't happen then, now. And so use the, because and now, because you didn't say anything, because you didn't speak up, because, we didn't have this, because this isn't happening here then, and then be very objective and very factual, because, this isn't happening, because I'm not receiving this, because this didn't occur, because I'm not permitted to, because of, and then state something factual then, because then, not because, oh, you're such a slob, we can't do, don't give subjective, emotionally charged conversations. You're just perpetuating, that covert narcissism, which is going to become even more exploded. It's going to explode in your face, because the covert narcissist will definitely become more covert narcissistic. You'll push them away. You'll alienate them. You'll alienate yourself. All of a sudden, you're the crazy person. You're the loud one. You're the angry one. You're demanding. You're unreasonable. So it's going to go in that direction. So you need to have the conversation and always make it objective, meaning fact-based. Because this didn't happen on time. Because, we can't have communication, because we don't talk about this, because we haven't written this down, because of the wonderful things she does, whatever, use the because, then phraseology, and then fit it into your situation, and begin to really address this within yourself, the covert narcissist isn't going to be like, hey, seems like, you haven't really gotten enough affection from me. What's up with that? They're not going to come to you. Hey, seems like, I haven't really been giving you a lot of eye contact. What's up with that? You're not going to hear this from the covert narcissist. You need to deal with and handle this yourself and stop coping, start living. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. And I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Love you.